Schema flexibility. Now, if you have a situation where you have a rapidly evolving schema, then it may not make sense to store the data in a relational database. I know startups who often are working in a, well, first of all, they frequently pivot, but they also tend to not have a complete knowledge of what it is that they need to model, because business requirements change. They're in a fast-moving environment, right? So being able to plan at the start, hey, this is my schema, it's not really going to change much. If it does, sure, I can modify it, but ultimately I know what it is. Versus startup land where it's like, I'm going to be changing my mind a lot, and what I am saving and persisting 2 or 3 months from now could look quite different from what I'm persisting now. So if you're in that fast changing environment and you need some schema flexibility, then I would suggest relational databases, again, not really the one that you might want to choose. With relational databases, when I say they've got an inflexible schema, what I'm really talking about is, of course, you can change the schema, but then all of the data that you had persisted with the previous version of a schema somehow has to be translated into the new schema. Okay, you can't kind of store both types of schemas in the same database. Or you can duplicate tables, but let's not go to that disaster. Let's leave that off the table. On the flip side, say a non-relational database, it does have a flexible schema, as do graph databases, but let's leave them aside for the moment. And ultimately what that means is that you can persist, say at the start of the year, a particular version into a database, a particular version of the schema in the database, and then you change the schema later on and you persist into the same database without having to change anything, really, a new version of the schema. And as long as the application code can handle both sets of data, then you don't actually have to do anything else in the database. Something to think about. If you're going to have a rapidly changing, evolving schema, maybe look at a NoSQL database.